Hello, thank you for joining us. You should be able to hear us right now. So if you happen to have the ability to give us a quick wave, that would be awesome. Make sure that our audio is good. And we've gotten a lot of requests. This is Jim Pezzavena with Proposed Properties. And we've gotten a lot of requests lately in our next sessions to get a little bit more granular on actually submitting requests in the platform. So we've talked before about the advertising and the marketing piece, what to do in terms of printing the listing presentations, getting all the marketing collateral so you can go out there and brand yourself as a new construction specialist. Now we have situations where we're getting into listing season. We're seeing individuals wanting to go ahead and get going and actually submit requests. And I wanted to make sure that we covered that today. So we actually brought in Jeff Cook, who is the chief technical guru here at Proposed Properties. And he's gonna walk us through how we submit these requests. If you have any questions, feel free to chime into the chat. We'll be happy to go ahead and make sure that we answer any questions for you as we go. But we wanna make sure you're comfortable actually submitting requests, whether you have a specific property or you're trying to get a flavor for what's a good match for a particular home or a lot when you go into a listing presentation. So Jeff Cook is here to walk us through that. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So Jeff's going to walk through a couple of different scenarios. If you have questions, please put them into the chat and I'll try and respond to those as we go. And we're going to walk through a couple of different scenarios so you folks are comfortable with the Proposed Property system and how to actually request pricing and models for your clients.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. All right. Yeah, I know this is a common request we get, and I know once in a while we just have to sit back and kind of do a video. We send out help guides and things like that, but sometimes it's just easier to watch somebody kind of walk through what's going on. So what I'm going to do is, with each one of you, you should have received a link so that you could log into a profile where you can submit requests. And if you are, there's three types of scenarios you kind of run into when you need a model request. One is you're going to go into a listing presentation and you don't have that one yet. You want to kind of put the concept forward, and you might want to get a sense of what might fit on there, or they don't necessarily want to put two listings up, or if you're in Florida, you can only do one listing. Or the other scenario is you have an MLS listing already for land, and in Illinois, our system's MLS integrated, so you can just put the MLS number in. I'll show you all this. And then lastly, you may be working with a buyer. And in that case, you don't necessarily have a specific address, but you may just want to look at models and things like that. So we'll go through those three different scenarios as they're the most common that we run into. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to log into the system. And if you haven't done this already, it's fairly straightforward. You can just go to proposedproperties.com. And under the Realtor tab, there's you can just click on Real Estate Agent Login. Or if you accidentally just click on the regular Realtor tab, you can also just click this button over here, which takes you to the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our Real Estate login page. If you want to bookmark it, it's also just cms.proposedproperties.com will take you to this login page as well. So when you get here, your login should be your email address. If you've forgotten your password or didn't receive a password, you can hit the forget password button right here, and it will take a page where you put your email address in, and it will fire you back a change link. So if you don't know your password, the fastest thing to do is just click that button, put your email address in, and hit submit, and we'll fire off a change link to you right away.
Now, one thing that I know some individuals have had some challenges with, because I know many of us have multiple email addresses. So the email address we should be using here, it should be the one that you use to register for your NCS class, right?
Yes, that's a good point, because we're not going to know what the correct email address is. It's whatever you gave us when you signed up, because we'll automatically use that to create accounts for you. So anyway, so I already have I'm going to use a demonstration login here for a second. So let me go ahead and just put in one of my demo accounts. Okay. And I'm going to log in. Oops. Sorry about that. I got to put the right password in. Okay. Okay. And when you go in, it should take you to a page like this, profile page. So the first thing I'm going to want to show you, if you haven't done this already, is you're going to want to click on this side. This is where all the navigation tabs are. And the first thing you want to do is click on the My Profile piece. Now, I've already filled out this information, but you're going to want to put in your picture. This is where your logo goes. You can just upload, PNG, JPEG files, typical things like that. And then all we really have from you when we set up files are your name and email address. So we're going to need what phone number if you want that to appear, address, a bio if you want to have that, along with any disclaimers that you might want to put if your brokerage requires disclaimers. And the reason for that is when you do requests and we send them back to you, we're actually going to market those on the proposed properties website along with, putting a package together. So we're going to try and generate inquiries to these along with your marketing. So whatever you want to say about yourself, obviously, you want to have that in your profile as up to date as possible. So that's step one. The next step is you'll see there's a whole bunch of buttons over here, and I kind of want to go through these a little bit slowly and just so you can understand what's what. But there's a couple of different tabs. One is view lot to home proposals. That's going to be more important here in just a second, but it's kind of self-explanatory. Lot to home model requests, that's where we're going to click when we actually want to go in and look for models and submit packages for quoting requests. Reno for home requests. This is where if you have an opportunity that you don't think is necessarily ready for new construction, maybe it's not quite a tear down, but it might need some work. Or your client, if their buyer client would like to get some information about renovation, that's where we would click that and it'll take you to a form. That will be updated with our new partnership with Real Rental Pro shortly. You'll also be able to get very quick estimates on renovations very soon. Registering a client, that's where if you have a buying client and you want to make sure that that name is associated with you, and so when we're talking to them, if you want to register your clients, you can do that there. Searching for models is basically the same thing as model requests. It's just a little quicker way to get into the system and search. And then on favorite plans, we'll get into in a second. That's your saved favorites. It's kind of like a gallery of things that you've done over time. That's also available up here in this corner. And the last thing is the agent resources page. And this is really important. You're going to be going there quite a bit. That's where we actually store documents. So things like purchase marketing option agreements, things like that, where you're going to go ahead and, if you're in Illinois, it's the listing addendums, things that you're going to need. And also videos and tutorials, frequently asked question documents, things like that. So just all the resources that you're going to need to make this work. So that's what's in that link. But as far as for our presentation today, I want to focus more on actually requesting models. So let's go ahead and I'm going to click on this tab right here, which is the lot to home model request. Click on that right there. And you'll see that I've used this test account a few times, right? So I've got a bunch of these different proposals in here. These are all a summary on this page of all the requests that I have put in the past. And I can go back into that and I can click on those by clicking the deal number if I want to see what it was. But you'll see I've had a number of these go in. But as far as if you've never done this before, to start a new request, all we have to do is click on this button right here, start new lot to home model requests in the upper left-hand corner. And that is going to take me to this page, okay? I'm actually going to hit this button and make this page a little bit bigger so you can see it. So we have a choice here. If I already have an MLS ID for the land, and right now, again, we're integrated in Illinois, but I can put that MLS ID number here and search by MLS number. And all that's going to do is going to pre-fill the information we're looking for about the land without you having to do the work. Otherwise, if it's not in the MLS or if you're not in an area where we have current MLS coverage, you're going to want to click property is not in the MLS. And then lastly, you could hit no address, and that's where we're just going to search models. But for this demonstration, let's go ahead and we'll click on properties not on the MLS. Okay. And that's going to bring up this field. Okay. So we're just going to need to know a little bit about the parcel. Not a ton, but just enough so that we can kind of make sure that the plans we're putting together will actually work with what you're requesting. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in an address. So let's just do 222 West Roosevelt Road. And that's Wheaton, Illinois.
So Jeff, would this be most commonly used, say, if somebody's going to go on a listing presentation and they don't necessarily have that listing one yet?
That's where we see it used the most, or in scenarios like in Florida, where you can only have one listing as opposed to two. You do it this way too, because you don't have an MLS number. So, and again, there are many markets where we are currently doing business that we just don't have a feed. And if you don't have a feed, say you're out of Massachusetts, or if you're in North Carolina right now, we're working on getting those feeds, but we don't have those automatically loading right now. So this is the feature you'd use. And really all we need again is just the dimensions and the price. So in this case, let's say that this lot is 100 feet by 150 feet deep. We need to know if it's a corner or not. The reason for that is if it's a corner, we have different setbacks on the side yard that we do from an in-lot. So whether or not it's a corner or not, you can just click yes or no. It defaults to no, just, we're going to assume it's an in-lot if you don't check yes. And then we need to know something called the buildable width. This mainly comes into play for lots that are not symmetrical, but I'll explain. Like in this case, we're looking at a rectangular lot. So our buildable width is really still 100 feet. But let's say you had a lot that was a different shape, right? Let's say you had a lot that had, the frontage was at an angle. That buildable width might be slightly different, or if you're on a cul-de-sac. So to the best of your ability, we're trying to figure out really what the width of the actual buildable space is. If you need help with that, you can contact us. But if you have a sense of what the buildable width is, this is important to put it in here, because even if the front of your lot, it may show from the MLS, it's 15 feet, right? If it's on a cul-de-sac, you might have a driveway. But if you have to put the house back farther, you may have 150 feet to work with. So that's what we mean by that number. In most cases, the buildable width will be the frontage dimension, just so you know, in 99 out of 100. But just in case it's an odd shape, we need to know what that is. The last thing that we need is the land price. So that's what you plan to market it, because we're going to incorporate whatever price you put here into our package. So let's say that in this case, the land is $150,000, just for the sake of demonstration. And then you go ahead and hit submit. Okay. So now what the system's going to do is it's going to start matching plans out of a database of over 20,000. They're going to fit those dimensions. And as a default, it's simply going to grab everything it can. But now you're going to go ahead and have the ability to narrow that down to things that make a little bit more sense. You can always go back and modify the land information if you want to by clicking this here. But let's go ahead and we'll start narrowing this down. The first thing is we can choose the number of beds and baths. That's obviously things that you want to look at. So let's say in this case, we're looking at a house that we want to build that's either 3 or 4 bedrooms. And let's say we know we want to have at least 2.5 baths and potentially up to 3. You just choose those drop downs. If you know what your maximum budget, what your marketing price is, you can put that number in here. So let's say that we want to have a maximum price on this of $750,000. That's going to help the system narrow down the size and some other categories that we got just to do it. You can put that in. If you know you want to have a specific type of garage, you can add that here. Although I'd suggest just leaving that as all in most cases so you can see the plans. And then lastly, as far as what you're trying to market, you're going to want to have, the size of the house that matches. Now, what this is going to do is all these parameters that are in here are trying to find things that fit, but also fit price-wise. So if you tell me that you want a 5,000 square foot house and your maximum budget is $11.25, we're not going to get any matches, just so you know. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put some numbers in here. So let's say we want to market a 2,500 square foot house to a 2,600 square foot house. And I want 2 bedrooms, build what's 100. And I can choose stories if I want. Go ahead and choose I want a 2-story house. Lastly, I can choose style. Let's say right now I want to look at farmhouses or something, but just for the sake of this, I'm just going to choose all and hit submit. Okay. And now that's narrowed it down to where I have 31 pages of 6 plans. So that's quite a few. I have over 100 plans to look at. So I can either look at these 6, or if I want to, I can go up in this corner and I can look at a few more. I can look at up to 24 at a time. And I can look through the inventory and say, hey, does any of this kind of make me think this is going to fit on my lot? So as you see, there's a lot of different styles available or so. So I may want to go back and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and narrow this down to farmhouses. Submit that. And you can see I've narrowed it down to where there's only 1 page worth. And that's kind of what you want to get to, where you're kind of looking at plans that really fit. So now I have a couple of choices. I can scroll through this and look. If I want to click on that and take a look, I can see here's the pictures of it. We can kind of scroll through and see what these plans look like. In this case, I've only got 2 images here. But the floor plans are down below. We kind of see what that looks like. So first floor, second floor, big porch. And let's say I like this plan, but I'm not sure that's the one I want to do a quote on yet. So I have a couple of choices. I can like the plan. In that case, it's going to go put it in my favorites, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I can download the plan information. If I hit that, it's going to give me the pictures and the floor plan images, along with a little spreadsheet that's kind of got some data about the house. So if you want to send it to a client or something along those lines, you can just download the information. Or lastly, I can request a quote right now. And if I request a quote, that's going to go ahead and send a message over to us and say, hey, I really want to get a quote. We do ask that you, when you're doing this, you do have the ability to request quotes on all these plans, but try and keep it to a reasonable number. One or two, because we can always come back and change them later. We do ask, we've had times where people have requested 20 or 30 models, and we have to call and say, look, you're going to have to let us know, because we do have a human being that actually sits down and looks at these before we send them back to you. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and look at a couple more plans. Let's say I like this plan. I'm going to go ahead and like that one as well. Let's say I like this plan right here. Say, this is the one. I really like this one. So instead of liking it, I'm just going to request a quote right now on that one. So this will bring this up, and I'm going to hit request quote. Okay, and thank you. So what just happened is I submitted this into the system, and in a couple minutes, we're going to go ahead and we'll get an inquiry request. And we will go ahead and within usually about a day, we will send you back a confirmation with a package. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But let's say I'm done. I don't need to look at any more packages here. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you some other features. I'm just waiting for that quote to come back. Once you get the email from us that your quote is done, you're going to go over to this section right here, which is View Lot to Home Proposals. Okay, so I'm going to click on this button right now. And let's say this is just another quote that I did for earlier for another demonstration. But let's say I want to look at this. Say, okay, here's my quote. If you click on either View Proposal or the ID, it's going to bring up the details. So in this case, this was a 2,400 square foot plan. Here's all the pertinent information about the plan that you had. This is the plan ID. Here is the commission that will be paid out, just so you have everybody's obviously interested in that. And that's on the construction portion alone, right? Wherever the land is, the land is. So this is in addition to the land portion. The land price that was put into this was $275,000. The cost of the construction itself was $491,569. So the marketed package price is down here, the total price, and that's $766,569. So I do want to make a note that when we do these packages, we are not including certain costs. And I think Jim has probably talked about that in the NCS class, but there are different costs associated with building a house that you're not going to be able to control. Those are called soft costs. So things like, the tear down costs, the cost of engineering, sewer hookup things, those are a lot specific. So when we're sending this back to you, we're going to also send some information that you're going to want to put into your listing as disclosures that explain all that. So you'll get, along with the package, you're going to get listing instructions as to what you should put into that, just to make sure. So if there's any questions on that, obviously, once you get the quote, you can call us back. Okay. So let's say we get this thing. You can go ahead and download the information. If you scroll down to the bottom, here's the interior photos and all that, which we'll include. We can download the images and details, and that's what you'll use to go ahead and create your MLS listing between the pictures and the data that we have right here. And let's say that you now have had that thing on, and after a certain amount of time, you want to change the listing. I think Jim's talked about this in the past. One of the beauties of the Proposed Properties program is that you're able to swap out the listings itself and refresh them if you're not getting the right amount of traffic that you think you should get on that lot. And a lot of times, again, it's just dialing into what the market's really going to want. So what you can do is you can go back into the plans. You don't have to necessarily submit a new request. We can go into the liked file, which is either favorite plans or this little heart thing up here. We click on this, and you'll notice that all the plans that I liked are all here, right? So it shows me what the status is. I have pending quotes, or if I want to go ahead and say, hey, I really liked this plan, this one right here. I'm going to turn that up a little bit. I want to go ahead and get a quote on that. You're able to go ahead and just hit the request right now, and we'll go ahead and do a new quote for you, which then again will be the same process. You'll go ahead and get an email from us. It'll be under your lot to home proposals, and you can go ahead and simply and easily refresh that listing and see if there's a better model that's meeting your market, if we need to lower the price or something along those lines. So that's the basics of entering for an actual listing itself. The other thing that some people do is, let's say you have a buyer. The other quick thing you can do is again, under search for models or model requests. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit search for models. Let's say we don't have an address, okay? And let's say I just want to go ahead and look at different models for right now that my client might be interested in. I don't know what land they want specifically, but my client really just wants to see kind of what types of plans are available. This will bypass the need to go ahead and put in all the land information, and you can just narrow down the plans, okay? So let's say I want to go ahead and just say, I want to look at 4-bedroom, specifically 4-bedroom colonial homes, okay? Hit submit, okay? And, oh, my client would love this one. So go ahead and click that. Now you're able to like it, and you're able to download it. But you won't be able to request a quote, even though this is here, until you put it in the land, just so you know. It's going to tell you, hey, you can go ahead and like these and download it, but we can't do quotes for packages that don't have land associated with them, just as an FYI. But if you need to go ahead and get your client some information, some pictures, maybe a floor plan, this is a really quick and easy way to do it. So anyway.
So one of the features that I think it's important to make sure that we really pay attention to, because you started out with a lot of plans in that last exercise.
Sure.
And you narrowed it down to a pretty small amount.
Yep.
And I think the square footage was a big driver, right? Only 25 to 2,600 square feet.
Yes.
That narrowed it down, right? And then after that, you actually picked a particular style. And that obviously narrowed it down quite a bit as well, because we have all these different styles, colonial and cottage and farmhouse. So in your particular market, there's probably 1 or 2 styles that are really popular. So that's going to help you narrow down this huge universe into a smaller one. The other button that you should really look closely at is that number of stories. We have a lot of people that are trying to really get aggressive on the price point. And keep in mind, the 1-story homes are going to be much more expensive than the 2-story homes. So 3,000 square foot of ranch costs a lot more than a 3,000 square foot home with 1,500 square feet on the first floor and 1,500 square feet on the second floor. So as you're doing your home shopping, if you're really concerned specifically about dollars, try and find a plan where the first floor and second floor square footage are as close to each other as possible, right? Because that 1,500 per floor is also going to be a lot less expensive than a home that has 2,500 square feet on the first floor and 500 on the second, right? So just keep that in mind as you're doing your home search. Real important, the distribution of square footage first floor to second floor. Those ranches all have basement, they all have roof line. Whereas if you stack all that as evenly as possible, it drastically reduces your roofing costs, your foundation costs, et cetera, et cetera. So just keep that number of stories feature in mind, because the more you go up, the more the price is going to go down per square foot.
That's a big one. Yeah, ranch is obviously the most expensive to build. So when you're thinking about budgets, I mean, obviously, the key is, the size of the house is in most cases is going to drive the price. The other thing to keep in mind too is, I know some people are saying, well, I want to get a really, really inexpensive house. But there are certain things when you're looking to put a model up that you have to also keep in mind. It actually, as you decrease the size of the home, you actually increase the cost per square foot for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that a lot of the things that you're building in are going to be fixed costs. And I think Jim can talk to this and probably has an NCS. But I mean, the cost of adding a water service to a house is the same regardless of if it's 1,500 square feet or 5,000. I mean, you may have a bigger line at a 5,000, but as a rule of thumb, that's, if you're talking about a per square foot basis, it's going to be more expensive. So as we're looking and pricing these plans out, we're taking all those considerations into account, that certain things are just going to have a cost. So you may see that, wow, hey, my cost per square foot on this is a lot higher, Jeff. Why is that? Well, it's because you've decreased the size beyond a threshold where we know that permitting and things like that are not permitting, but just different things that you have to do as a fixed cost are going to really affect that home. And it usually starts to happen when you start to drop below about 1,800 square feet. You start seeing a real difference in the cost per square foot. So yeah. I know Jim can talk more about that.
Yeah, a lot of those smaller homes, they still have 2.5 baths and a kitchen, comparable to a 3,000 square foot home. And that's the square footage that costs a lot more money, right? So if you took that 1,800 square foot home and added another 1,200 square feet without increasing the kitchen or the bathroom count, really you're just adding carpet and drywall and framing, and there's still expense to it, of course, but overall your cost per square foot goes down because those expensive elements are in both homes, right? But the 3,000 square footer has another 1,200 square foot of less expensive construction, and that drives the per square foot price down as you get to the 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 square feet.
All right. Well, Jim, is there anything else in the system that you wanted me to cover at this point? I mean, we could look at other things, but I just want to make sure that we went through just the basics of submission and what you're going to get. Like I said, just if there's any questions on that, we can do another example if people want. But again, it's really the basic process. You just need to enter the land information as best you can. We really need to know how wide the lot is, and so we know what our setback requirements are going to be, and then what you're looking to build and your top end price points. And we can usually get pretty close in terms of what's going to work in your markets.
Well, we have one question here that came in. If I have a property in my favorites,
okay,
and it's quoted at a specific price, can I reference it down the road, and will that pricing still be accurate?
Well, that depends on how long you're talking about. Typically, we try to say that we'll try to keep our pricing intact for 90 days or so. We have to be reasonable about it. But what we have noticed over the last year or so is that certain commodities have been going through the roof in terms of cost, specifically lumber. And so things that we quoted, say, 8-9 months ago, our lumber prices have gone up 2 to 2.5 times. It's been crazy. Literally, lumber prices have gone from $300 a thousand linear feet to over 1,000 in some cases during spikes. So we do ask that if it's been 90 days or so, we can go ahead and adjust those prices on the same quote, but you'd have to let us know. But obviously, if we send you 3 quotes at the same time that you want to compare, when you go to swap that listing out, please let us know, just so we want to double check it. And we'll let you know if it's moved.
All right. So another question here. I received the proposal in the view lock to home proposals. What are the next steps actually getting it on the MLS?
Okay, well, basically this is the data. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go back into here. So here's the plan information that has 95% of the data you're going to need to put it on. The other thing you're going to get is either through the agent resources or from the email we send you are the disclaimers you're going to need to add along with that. But you can go ahead then, and if you want to grab these photos and pictures, there's the download images and detail button right here. You just click on that. And now I'm going to download a zip file that has all that information, right? All the photos, and you can use that to just push that up into your MLS listing. And again, it's going to have a spreadsheet that's got most of the data as well, but you can read the different things here, right? So here's the beds, the baths. If you need to add things like these, the room dimensions and so forth, those are available on the plans themselves. So if you need to add, the master bedroom size and so forth, you can read them right off the plans. And once that's there, you can put that up on a listing as long as the disclaimers are in place that, say, hey, this is a proposed listing. It doesn't really exist. And, make sure you understand that the soft costs are not included. You can go ahead and submit that in the MLS. And if you need help with that, obviously, we'd be happy to talk to you about it and help you get it on the MLS the first time.
Awesome. Have another question here. If I know a builder who I think might want to be on the proposed properties platform, how would they go about participating?
Well, it's basically not too bad. We do have a form that they can fill out on the proposed properties website. So I'm going to go ahead, and that's just proposed properties here. And there's a builder section right here. It's a new builder application. And if they fill out that stuff, we can go ahead and get back to them and see what they've got. If they have plans and they are accepted in the program, then they're going to submit to us a couple of the plans that they do and tell us what areas they work in, price points, et cetera. And we're going to try and position them whenever possible, just because they're, as opposed to trying to use random plans or plans from where they have to come and price them out after the fact. For us, it's always better to have a builder who we have a specific plan because they know that plan backwards and forwards. So if you do know builders who you think would fit the program are custom builders or have some specific plans that work really well in your marketplace, we would absolutely be open to talking to them about marketing their product.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the inventory in the proposed properties platform is growing all the time, is not only are the library of plans, but there's builders that apply, they get vetted. I think they take about a week or so to get vetted out, because we want to make sure, as real estate professionals, our reputation is very important, right? So we want to make sure that we're completely vetting them out, and that's checking with legal actions, the BBB reviews, their permit data, how long they've been building. It's pretty extensive, but it's about a 1 week process. And if they are approved, they're able to load as many of their plans onto the platform as they wish. And if that's a match for a Realtor request, we'll go ahead and we'll utilize that plan if it fits, right?
That's correct. The other thing the builders will have to keep in mind is that depending on again, I'll take a step back. In most cases, buyers are going to utilize a construction loan. And so this is one thing that's come up on a couple of these questions. So the builder is going to be subject to the bank's rules on their vetting process as well. So we will check out those builders, and they may work out perfectly for us and give us their plans. They will still likely have to go through a bank's approval process as well if they have not worked with that bank before. So just an FYI, in some cases we've had builders who just, the lender just said, hey, I've got an approval process. They have to fill out this form as well. So just FYI, we will get them on our program, but they, in some cases, have to have lender approval as well to utilize some specific one-time close programs, et cetera.
Right. And that type of vetting from the lender perspective makes sense, right? Because in many cases, the banks or lending institutions, they're bringing 80, 90, in some cases, 100% of the funds for these builds. So they have to have a comfort level with who they're working with as well. So we'll obviously share our vetting data with the respective financial institution, but they might have a separate application process that a new builder has to go through.
Right.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, I do not see any other questions here. If there are, by all means, feel free to type them into the chat, or you can go ahead and you can email Jeff Cook or myself. This has been great. I really appreciate it. It's always great when Jeff hops on and walks us through this. He is really the architect behind this system. And when it comes to system-specific questions, there's nobody better to answer them than him. So we want to thank you guys very much for joining us. Again, we do this every couple weeks, the next series of trainings. So if you want to know when the next ones are going to be, you can always go to neighbors.org, naibrs.org. And also, we've had a lot of interest in the renovation piece. I know that new construction obviously is going crazy right now. But for those of you or your clients that maybe can't swing new construction in your marketplace, there's a lot of, I'm thinking about buying a home, but I'm going to want to redo kitchens, baths, roofs, flooring, things of that nature. So we have an additional tool that we now have that we can bring to our NCS partners. This is only being offered to our NCS partners. And that is the Real Reno Pro tool, where in just seconds you can get accurate estimates on improvements. And if you want to take it further and actually submit a request and get specific pricing, you can always do that. And instead of getting bombarded by a million phone calls from a million contractors, you're connected with a project manager who actually works with you and your client to bring the right contractors with the right experience and expertise to your particular project. So again, those are also on the Neighbors website, neighbors.org. I believe the next one we have is February 11th, 3 p.m. Central. So you might want to go ahead and sign up for that one. That's going to be an awesome class. And what a phenomenal tool, especially knowing now the environment that we're in. You know, today's consumer is kind of buying something ready to go, or they're buying something with the idea that they're going to do an improvement. But, you know, that kind of the days of buying something as is, if it's not really updated and just kind of living with it, those days are kind of gone, right? We all know how consumers are data hungry and they know exactly what they want. And if for some reason we're not delivering it as real estate professionals because it simply doesn't exist in the marketplace, we're going to need to find a property that they can massage into that and make into that dream home, right? Otherwise, we might show them 100 homes and never get them to pull the trigger on something. So that's going to be an awesome class. Randy's going to be joining us on that from the Real Reno Pro team, and we'd love for you to be there as well. So again, February 11th, 3 p.m. Central. And more information about all these trainings can be found at neighbors.org. Jeff Cook, thank you so much for joining us
Yeah,
today.
no worries. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a great one, guys. We'll talk to you soon.